and talk about numbers, talk about
Right.
things that matter to him. Every user at the same account should get a separate subject, separate body, separate email, because
Mm.
you, at the end of the day, you're trying to communicate as a digital CSM to them, not as a customer marketing expert. We want to send emails like how a human would write. Hey, I'm concerned about this. Your number dropped by XYZ. Do you want to talk to me about this? Put
Yeah.
that as part of the subject.
And once again, welcome to the Digital Customer Success Podcast with me, Alex Turkovich. So glad you could join us here today and every week as I seek out and interview leaders and practitioners who are innovating and building great scaled CS programs. My goal is to share what I've learned and to bring you along with me for the ride so that you get the insights that you need to build and evolve your own digital CS program. If you'd like more info, want to get in touch, or sign up for the latest updates, go to digitalcustomersuccess.com. For now, let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Digital Customer Success Podcast. It's so great to have you back for episode 40. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it has been 40 episodes since I first said hello to you. And today I'm bringing you an off-cycle extra episode for the week with none other than Dickey Singh of Cast.app. You will likely have heard of Dickey before because he's very active in CS circles and is CEO of Cast.app, which is such a cool platform because it is one of a few emerging AI-based and AI-driven CS platforms out there, and it's essentially digital customer success in app form. So we have a lot of great conversation about digital CS, but also personalized motions and the future of AI, current state of AI, such really great and timely information in this episode that I just couldn't wait to share with you. So please enjoy this conversation with Dickey Singh of Cast.
Just aged myself.
Yeah, it was same here, man. Yeah, I remember very distinctly sending my first email. I was, I don't know. I guess I must have been in high school, maybe, or something. And I remember sending it and calling my friend that I'd emailed and say, "Hey, did you get it?"
Nothing has changed. Now you would text him,
No.
right? Hey, did you get my email?
Hey, did you get my email? Because you sure as shit ain't reading it.
It's funny.
Well, Dickey, hey, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you. I know we had to reschedule a couple times on my end. I think once on your end.
Yeah.
But we made it happen, and I'm really excited because not only are you doing awesome things for the CS community, but you have just a crazy background as well, and I want to dig into that a little bit. But welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of background, I do want to kind of maybe rewind the clock a little bit. You spent some time at MIT. From the looks of it, you did some cool stuff at MIT.
I did like an AI course over there before all this new stuff that came out, and learned a lot, right? I mean, we wanted to use AI everywhere. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'll tell you more about it. Right now we are using AI as an assistant, right? So then we're talking about using AI as a peer. Then we're talking about using AI as a manager that manages me. And then there were even things like organizations, right? The AI would run the organization and it'll just give you tasks. And there's distributed organizations and also. So we were very futuristic, and we thought this is 30 years in the making. Then OpenAI came out and everything in 6 months, 7 months, right? So
yeah, crazy. And everybody kind of thinks that the OpenAI thing was is the first thing that is AI, but it's I mean, there's a long history there that has led up to this event in history.
Absolutely.
Right?
We were using OpenAI obviously before it became popular, and we use 4 or 5 different services models, and we ended up training OpenAI with a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like we said, our CSMs don't know how to write SQL. Why can't they just
Yeah.
describe it in natural language, and it'll connect with Gainsight, it'll connect with Salesforce, it'll connect with Snowflake and write a query across platforms. And the CSM just has to look at the results, or the digital CSM in our case, has to just look at the results. If it looks fine, click a button and it'll be used to gather data, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up doing that. We had to train it quite a bit, but now it's available to everyone because
It's
I guess we
amazing.
didn't have business accounts at that time, right? So
Hmm.
early on, so whatever you train,
Yeah.
it's available to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so tell me a little bit about your, I guess, what led you up to. I mean, today you're, very well known in CS circles because of Cast.app that you're founder of. Been about like four, but you have this crazy rich history of engineering and product leadership across all kinds of segments, right?
Yeah,
And I'm curious to get your take on kind of what led you down this path.
yeah.
What was the evolution to get you into serving the CS community with software?
Yeah, so my background mostly been like, I like an SVP of product or a CTO with 6 or 7 venture-backed companies in Silicon Valley. As I said, like I've been here since '95, and before that I was in Virginia. And
Yeah.
uh, naively, I had no idea about customer success before I started Cast.app.
Hmm.
And I think that helped in a way as well. But there are like 2 stats that I read that kind of were in the back of my mind, right? 75% of the revenue of most companies comes from existing customers.
Hmm.
And there are like 8 to 10x more tools for pre-sales. So it's like, the exact opposite, right? 80, uh, 73% in Salesforce, 75% in UiPath. Like you look at Slack, look at any company, look at PLG companies or SLG companies. It's the same thing, right? So, but the
Sure.
number of tools we sell to pre-sales or to salespeople is like 10x more.
Hmm.
So I always wanted to like understand it more. So what I did is like I bought every book on CS on post sales, like read them cover to cover, made yellow marks all throughout, and I tend to like read the books again and again,
Hmm.
because sometimes I think, oh, I missed this, or something. No, that's absolutely wrong. That doesn't work. That's like the author is just selling the company or just selling
Hmm.
his services, right? So that's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
So I always kind of thought that way. But then something interesting happened. I was just having lunch with my one of my ex CEOs at Customer Sat, where we kind of mostly served like Apple, Yahoo, Salesforce, BA, WebLogic, and AMD, those kind of companies. And he mentioned someone about like Mary Alexander. And I said, oh,
Mm.
she was a board member. He said, yes. So I said, like, I want to meet her. And I had lunch with her. And then she told me she formulated or she pioneered or coined is the right word, customer success in 1990 for Ventive.
Jeez. Yeah.
And and I read all the blog posts from everyone, like, oh, Salesforce did this, Salesforce. I didn't
Right.
believe her, to be honest, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Then she followed up and connected me to another person. And he was her indirect report, like maybe 3 levels down or something.
Hmm.
And he
Hmm.
shared with me his customer success manager card, right? He showed it to me, like it was like,
Yeah.
in a bad shape, yellow and all that stuff. And so I
Uh-huh.
said, okay, she's telling the truth. So basically, so I got together with like a few executives, and I did what did I do? We did a interview for her with her, and we kind of actually posted on our on our website, cast.app/articles. You have to find it.
Hmm.
It's pretty interesting. Is even in her mind, it was a way to add revenue, not
Yeah.
just service the customer. And it's like full circle after so many years. Now it's going back to like talking about like revenue. Even if you're not selling or upselling, you're influencing the sale, right? So
Hmm.
that thing was pretty. To be honest, yeah, that's how I got to know CS from her original experience. I always thought it's about like doing better for the customers and doing better for the teams, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. That's a cool genesis. I like that. Where literally you started with the genesis of CS. I think a lot of
yeah,
people, work backwards into that. But yeah, that's really cool. Um, well, so fast forward to today, Cast.app, pretty well known. The reason why I'm crazy excited to speak with you is because essentially what you're doing is digital customer success in app form, which is which is very just like meta and cool. But like, and so this is a question that I ask all of my guests, right? Which is this notion of like, what is digital customer success? Because it varies from absolutely everybody I talk to.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it's whatever the company is selling is digital CS in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that. That's how most people think of it. But I mean, it could be webinar software, it could be like community software, even email marketing. So I guess everyone's jumping into the bandwagon. But seriously, I think
Mm-hmm.
to me, digital CS is, I guess, using technology to help customers and even the customer success team members to like grow and preserve their revenue. But
Yeah.
here's the kicker: with a magnitude higher speed, accuracy, reliability, consistency, and scalability. And a magnitude higher, I mean like 10x, 20x higher.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's what automation and AI really get you. Is like
Right.
our customers have like, I'll share with you later, I guess, like 30x ROI on some of the products. I mean, we take the credit, but at the end of the day, is like combining automation and AI and making sure that your AI does not hallucinate. We spent a
Yeah.
lot of time doing that. We'll talk about that as well. I personally see digital CS as three things, right? One is the very simple one to many, even like a blog post or infographic or even a webinar or a webcast that you do. You do it once, you share it with multiple people. This podcast is
Mm-hmm.
two people talking and sharing it with multiple people. And the second is what I kind of started calling many to many, like a little early on. And there are just two things in there. Like one of them is multiple people helping multiple people, like communities. And the second thing that's becoming really popular these days is customer and customer success manager collaborative wikis. In other words, right,
Mm-hmm.
they would write some post, the customer will comment on it, the other CSMs will comment on it, and end up becoming like a collaborative article. So that is
Yeah.
many to many. The third is what we are doing, which is Cast.app, which is going back to the roots of customer success, which is like one-on-one personalized digital experiences for customers,
Mm-hmm.
but one-on-one. In other words, if I'm talking to a C-level executive, my tone changes, my conversation changes. When I'm talking to a CFO, I'm a little bit more professional. I'm talking about ROI. When I'm talking to a CCO, I'm talking about like ROV or things like that. But when
Yeah.
I'm talking to a user, I'm talking about, hey, learn this, do this, watch this video, and surfacing and making summaries of those blog posts and showing it to them. That's what we do. And then also, when you talk to a power user, like, don't teach them how to click the mouse or anything. Like, hey, you have too many users in your segment. You should
Right.
sub-segment them.
Yeah.
Don't believe in a single segmentation model. Like, have several segmentation models. It's okay. Cast.app can handle it, right? So those are the kind of things that we talk about. So
Yeah. I love that. And it is really kind of one of those kind of golden opportunities in digital is to get to the point of sophistication where you can be persona specific, and that's hard. It's hard to get to. You gotta you gotta know who your users are, and you gotta
yeah.
you gotta have some data to support that and all that. But once you do it, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I think persona is the most important thing you can talk about, like when we are talking to people. But one
Mm-hmm.
advice that I figured out is like, don't go by titles. And the reason I say
Mm-hmm.
that is, an SVP at Salesforce may not have that much authority, but
Yeah.
like a head of customer success at a very small company would have a lot of authority, right? So it's different thing. Don't go by
Mm-hmm.
titles. Go by responsibilities. Go by roles. Go by like user profiles, right? Like go by interests. So and then we use all that
Yeah.
data to like figure out behavior. Like we have so much AI built in even into our player kind of thing. So if we notice that someone always skips over support slides
Mm-hmm.
or something, we move
Yeah.
that away that they can click on and access it, for example. So
Yeah. So, making it intelligent to where and really specific to that person. That's
yeah.
super important. I in a previous episode, I had a really great conversation with Dan Ennis. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's been doing some pretty amazing work around data analysis of specific personas, where he's essentially building a data profile of what an admin might be versus what an end user might be versus what an exec might be or whatever, and then applies that across the user segments to where he doesn't necessarily need to like ask them or know for sure what they are, but based on their usage and their behaviors and things like that, can get a pretty good sense for
Yeah.
what the persona is. And I love that level of sophistication. It sounds like y'all are cracking that very similar thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the only thing I would say is like don't go by titles, go by responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like a CEO of a startup would do support and customer success and write bills and
Exactly.
bring pizza, right? So for the team. Yeah, so
From mopping the floors to signing the checks.
there you go.
Probably at the same time too.
Yeah, got two
um,
hands.
so I want to get a little bit deeper into Cast because I don't like to kind of I hate having founders on and then basically tell them what their app does. I'd much rather hear it from the founder themselves and kind of and let you kind of speak about not only the genesis of it, but at its core, what are you solving for?
Yeah. What we are kind of solving is we only see there are like two major problems for every B2B company. It's a huge thing. They're like one is like okay, before I say that, like there are two or three types of companies that are very simple products. They don't need CSMs. They'll never need CSMs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple idea. They will just build it into the product, right?
Yeah.
And these are like young PLG companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the whole mass of B2B companies and SaaS companies, which kind of rely on CSMs and account managers and subject matter experts to provide, adoption and usage and, sales and upsells to customers.
Right.
So that's what we kind of focused on. And the last category is companies that take like 9 months to deploy and they have an army of professional services, technical services, and all those kind of things. And so we are kind of focused on the middle, which is
Mm-hmm.
luckily 95% of that 5 million B2B users,
Yep.
customers, right? There are
Right.
5 million
Yeah.
B2B companies. So we're trying to help over there. And there are two things we realized is the CSMs and account managers each have too many accounts, right? On the other hand, not every account has a CSM. So we
Yeah.
are just trying to solve those two problems.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we did it is we think it's very unique, but everyone has his own opinion. So in the traditional way of doing customer success, you put a customer success manager in between the customer and the playbooks and the data. And you need a CSP tool, you need CRM tools,
Mm-hmm.
support tools. So what we did is, what if we could elevate that CSM
Mm-hmm.
to a more of a consulting role, and maybe so he or she can focus on relationships with customers and new challenges, and in his place bring in a digital customer success manager or an AI driven digital customer success manager in our case,
Yep.
who executes playbooks, digitizes playbooks, executes playbooks, and communicates with the customer in the manner that is approved by salespeople, or the VP of sales is approved by the CCO,
Mm-hmm.
and uses like automated benchmarking to upsell and cross sell, and uses like things like hey, customers your size use these four features, you're only using three. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk to your CSM Scott Adams to see if they want to learn more about this? Or same thing for sales, right? Like when
Yeah.
you use competitive benchmarking, so that kind of comes for free with our product. So what we are
Mm-hmm.
solving, just two simple use cases: a digital business review with a purpose. What good is a digital business review when you cannot upsell, cross sell, or
Yep.
recommend products, right? So,
Right.
and then advanced onboarding, which includes like pre-boarding prospects, onboarding accounts, onboarding users, onboarding different personas differently,
Mhm.
re-onboarding a previously bundled product. When a new hire happens at your customer, onboarding the users again when the account has already been onboarded. So the more complex the onboarding, that's where we kind of come in. So two simple use cases like a digital business reviews that grow and preserve your revenue, and
Mhm.
accelerating value realization through pre-boarding, onboarding, reboarding, and even offboarding. Although we don't have a single customer that's using our offboarding part. So
I love that so much because it speaks to what digital CS has kind of evolved to over time. Whereas if, and regular listeners will have heard me talk about this before, but like a few years ago, the notion of digital CS is okay. We need this thing of customers. And that's definitely evolved into what it is today, which is to say, okay, yeah, we're doing a lot of customer facing things, but a big part of it is automating things so that your CSMs can be more strategic, provide more value, and less time doing like the mundane things, sending the same emails, like doing those kinds of things. And I love that you're fitting right into that
yeah,
level of kind of sophistication and automation to where it is removing the burden so that your CS, I hate saying can do more with less, but can be more valuable with
yeah,
less, I suppose.
yeah. Yeah, people have started hating that term, like doing more with less. But
Yeah.
like I guess efficiency is like built in, right? Right. So yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you may have heard of that term, like death by campaigns, right? What that really means is like you
Yeah.
have to write your own campaigns, and the campaigns that the customer marketing team wrote versus the campaigns that the CSM is putting together, or versus the campaigns that the marketing department, they don't talk to each other. Even your
No.
four campaigns don't talk to each other.
Hmm.
Now, the biggest problem with such environments is like if the campaigns don't talk to each other, you're sending too many emails, too many things. And if you upsell or cross sell in an email, you're going to be banned as a spammer, right?
That's
Obviously,
right.
because and then you get like start getting really poor results. So the trick over there is to not upsell and cross sell an email, but like take them into an environment, whether which is in app or
Hmm.
out of app, which is email or text. So the executive does not have to ever log in, right?
Yeah.
If the executive has to remember how to log in, or you're not going to be able to reach a CFO or a chief administrative officer. I'm trying to say is like line of business executives who are very influential, whether to keep your product or not keep your product. If they don't know about the
Sure.
ROI or ROV, they're not going to continue that. So
Hmm.
that's the underlying thing. Like instead of asking everyone to come into your product just so that you can claim like higher monthly active users or daily active users, what if you could take the product to where the user is? If they
Yeah.
send an email or text, reach them over there. If they log in, like power users and users, show them in app kind of thing, right? So
Yeah, it's interesting too that executive persona. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to be in the app at all. Like
yeah,
they're not your users. They're not your intended kind of audience for regular users. So why expect them to log into the app just to kind of see how things are going? And one thing you hit on that I think is something that is very often overlooked, is text messaging and SMS. I don't think a lot of people are doing that, because I think there's an automatic assumption that it's kind of creepy or it's invasive or whatnot. My argument has always been that if someone wants to be communicated via text, or if somebody wants to be communicated via email or whatever it is, or Slack message, like we should give our customers that option so that if they want to be communicated with text, they can be. But I think that's it for a lot of people.
yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think one distinction that we like to make is like, let's say you use HubSpot, yeah,
Mhm.
or so for email marketing.
Yeah.
You don't have a relationship with the people that you're sending your mails to. When you are talking to a customer, you have a relationship with the people. They're like kind of opted in your terms and conditions that you can communicate with them. So use transactional emails, and that's what we do. And honest to God, we get like minimum of 2.1x to 4x the industry average when we send out conversations. Like, we can HPE, they use CSP platforms, but send emails through us, Pure
Mm.
Storage, Aruba, same thing, right? So the interesting thing is, in the presentations or digital hubs that we generate and send, we ask them, would you like to opt in for getting text?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do an opt-in. So what we notice is like C-level execs prefer text, whereas operators and everything prefer email, and users and power users prefer to just log in into the product or so.
Mm-hmm. It's like a no-brainer, but there's a huge aversion to that. I don't really get that, but I
Yeah,
think
but
it's
your
extremely
camp, yeah.
powerful because your executive, they've got their phone like all the time, right? What do you recommend when folks are setting up the system and doing those kinds of things? Do you make recommendations on what they should send via SMS versus email?
Yeah, you let your end customers choose SMS, but
Mm-hmm.
you reach out to executives over email, but give them an option to switch to SMS. But
Mm-hmm.
then the campaign should also change. As I was mentioning
Yeah.
earlier, right? Like our you don't have to create multiple campaigns because we have a generative platform. So not only the presentations are generated, the digital hubs are generated, but even the campaigns are generated, right?
Mm.
So if I take one 30-second departure, why is that helpful? Because if somebody has already done steps 8 and 12, the campaign won't get stuck. It will
Yeah.
overlook that, tell them to do steps 1 to 7, and then ask them to do step 9, and then move on, right? Because it's a generative platform.
Yeah.
Since it is generative, don't write like really long emails, put like really short emails, give them a single call to action button, right? Or if you have several call to actions, they should point to the same result, which is like watch
Mm-hmm.
the presentation or view your digital hub or so. And then if you're sending it by text, should be like one or two lines,
Yeah.
right? We have come up, like we call it like anti-patterns of emails. Like, everyone puts the name of the customer on the top in the subject and that does this. No, talk about numbers, talk about like,
Right.
things that matter to him.
Mm-hmm.
Every user at the same account should get a separate subject, separate body, separate email, because
Mm.
you, at the end of the day, you're trying to communicate as a digital CSM to them, not as a customer marketing expert. We support customer marketing also in our product, but we want
Yeah.
to send emails like how a human would write. Hey, I'm concerned about this. Your number dropped by XYZ. Do you want to talk to me about this? Put
Yeah.
that as part of the subject, right? So, and
Yeah.
again, you can do that with generative platforms. It's very hard to set it up when you are kind of creating campaigns separately, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Are there some like particular like success stories or really cool like use cases that you've come across
Yeah,
of Cast and customers that are using it particularly well?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there are quite a few, right? There's a paper on our website about Pure Storage. This is the
Mm-hmm.
first division that signed up. They are making over $400,000 a quarter, and they're attributing it to digital CSMs, right?
Wow.
And another division of them, I forget, I think they do like Six Sigma training for customers or so. They
Mm-hmm.
save over 150 hours per account by switching from a self-service LMS to Cast personalized learning. Now, the
Huh.
difference in LMS is like, yeah, you have a 30-minute video, or you watch that, or we can generate like a 4-minute conversation, 5-minute conversation that goes over and teaches you the 5 whys of Six Sigma, but also teaches you how to use like fish boning and all those kind of things in
Yeah.
case you have forgotten. Why? Because the prerequisite is you need to know fish boning before you do this, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
the presentation video that goes out is custom created for Alex. Why? Because we know that Alex has taken these 4 courses. He got 3 A's and 1D. So we'll talk more about the thing that he got
Yeah.
1D.
Right.
So it's like personalized because we know this, and it's much shorter, right? Like if what
Mm-hmm.
is 4 or 5 minutes, and with an option to look into that. So those are some of the
Yeah. Yeah,
things.
that's a cool combination of kind of the concept of micro learning
Yeah,
and AI generated kind of content curation is essentially what it is. Yeah.
Yet
Yeah.
another example, this customer route this, and I tell this to all my customers because they've given me permission to share some of their analytics. They
Mm.
get like 4x the other people as far as like success metrics are concerned.
Mm.
And they have a very simple philosophy: less is more. They don't want to tell more things to a customer. They show like 2 or 3 slides, but they let them ask questions. They let them. So I don't know whether you're aware or not that our product it trains on every tech stack and your products automatically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what that really means is like when you are giving a presentation, you usually show 7 to 10 slides. But on your eighth slide, the CCO has 20 questions, right?
Right.
So what normally people do in a QBR or something, they create like a 50-page deck and have a big appendix and all that stuff, right? But that's not the right thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just keep it very small. But when the people ask questions, answer their questions live using an AI agent, right? So that's what
Yeah.
we do. It's quite
Like,
interesting. It was very well received by HP, Pure Storage, Aruba, VCOM, Route This, and yeah, I mean HP shared something that engaged customers buy 90% more often and spend 60% more per transaction. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, they have been using digital and our product for a long time. They were one of our design customers. And yet another customer, which I should be able to mention early next month, they showed us that a CSM can handle 2.17x the number of accounts across segments. And I have to read this while improving the CSM NPS by 16% and improving the onboarding CES by 21%.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
at the same time, right? So basically, what I'm saying is the CSMs can handle 2.17x the number of accounts across segments, and the CSMs NPS improved by 16%, and the onboarding
Yeah.
experts CES, customer effort score, improved by 21%.
To me, what this boils down to is finding those key moments and just really digging in on those and being like hyper focused on the outcome and and the metric behind the outcome, because again, to the earlier SMS example, right? If you can text your executive and say, hey, your team is doing this well, your team isn't doing this well, this is your ROI, et cetera, in like 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah,
I mean, how impactful is that versus the 20-page deck that we talked about that
yeah.
that has the huge
But why
appendix in
just,
it? Yeah.
yeah, and that's the difference. Why just inform the user, right?
Hmm.
Tell them what to do. In other words, hey, great job on this. Your team is doing really good. This is the next thing that you should focus on.
Hmm.
Really bad job on this. You should consider going to this training. So
Hmm.
the purpose is not like informing. The purpose is like an action that was generated on the fly. We take credit, but it's the AI doing it, right? So on the fly, telling them what to do. So never
Yeah.
show them negatives. Always use the negative to tell them what to do. Because
Hmm.
and 9 out of 10 times you're right? But there may
Yeah.
be times you're not right, but still you gave a suggestion. And you can always
Hmm.
say, I don't have a suggestion. Do you want to set up like 30 minutes with a CSM? Right? We
Yeah.
do that we do that. As I was saying earlier, right? AI tends to hallucinate. So what we do is like we figure out with every answer, we ask for how confident are you? And if the confidence
Yeah.
level is less than 0.36, we say, we think this is the answer, but we are not sure. But if it is less than
Mhm.
0.26 or something, we say we don't know the answer, but here is the Calendly for a CSM. Like when we introduce like these being able to connect CSMs, and people may say, yeah, so I can put this in my database, and everyone can connect to Calendly, so it's not no
Yeah.
big deal. But this is
Right.
the reason why we did that is because the AI tends to hallucinate, and then we can bring in the CSM as and
Hmm.
when needed.
As the human backup. Yeah. Um. Do you feel like your newness to customer success and you coming at this from an outside of CS perspective has served you well in this? Because I mean that's my impression, because you have this other view and you're not bogged down by the like uh tra- I guess traditional sentiment of what
Yeah.
a QBR is or whatever. Do you feel like that served you well in this whole
So
thing?
I hope so. I believe so. I hope so. But if see whatever happened in customer service like 15 years ago
Yeah.
is happening in customer success now. So in customers, you cannot ask for help without having. When you start typing a question, it starts giving you suggestions. Right?
Hmm.
You go anywhere. But the problem is they're going against a static document, right? In other words, they're going through your help documents and or your whatever, like university documents or whatever we call it, school.cast.app. So
Hmm.
they're going through that. So what we are doing different from over there is we are reading account information and helping the information. But that's an
Hmm.
aside. But that's the point that I'm making is like whatever happened in customer service will happen in customer success, which is like more automation and more AI agents answering your question and bringing in an expert, which is like the person who did the customer service agent later on, right?
Hmm.
So for that to happen, what happened in that industry is they started paying more to customer service agents, right? The humans.
Yeah.
I call them coffee-driven CSMs and AI-driven CSMs, right? So that's makes it easier for me to explain,
I
right?
love it. Yeah,
So the
that's
same
great.
thing is going to happen. Like the AI-driven CSM is going to request the coffee-driven CSM to like come in and help him, her, right? So we'll see a lot more of that. Um,
Yeah. If you haven't trademarked that already, I would do that immediately.
I should.
Well, I mean, speaking of seeing more of that, I think you know, arguably AI has been around for a while, but we're now getting into a level of usability of Gen AI that is obviously unprecedented, and a lot of people are coming to terms with that. Some better than others, um, but what is, in your opinion, what do the next few years look like in terms of the adoption of this technology and I guess specifically to CS? Like, where do you see all this going?
So, I mean, we have been noticing this since early October already, right? Like people are not that, and even like we're signing up a customer, just sent them the DocuSign early morning, and he said we'll sign as soon as I pick up the kids. So, so even like security companies are adopting AI.
Mm,
Obviously they ask us tough questions, and then I have a demo where I put his name and I say, who is such and such, right? The CCO's name. And in the past, we have tried to answer that. No, we cannot answer that because this person is talking to us. So it says like, I don't know. Do you want to connect with our CSM to answer? So that gives a good way to tell them that so people are getting comfortable with this AI thing.
yep.
At the end of the day, I don't think so. There are still few people who are resisting, right? Like say, hey, human touch and all those kind of things. But I feel it can do more service to you and make your job as a CSM or as a CS leader a lot
Hmm.
easier. And you
Hmm.
can look at like minimum 12x to 40x ROI with the products that you use instead of using a system of record tool that
Yeah.
put data in it and you run reports and then you create campaigns and reach out to people and say nobody's clicking on my campaigns, things like that. So
Yeah.
things that can learn can really help you take it to the next level. And if I may, a lot has changed. When I was at the MIT AI thing, we were focused on supervised learning and unsupervised learning. We even have unsupervised learning in our player because it learns if you always skip over support and it'll move
Yeah.
it to the side, right?
Hmm.
But then again, semi-supervised learning was a big thing at that time. Like we were like, oh, we're waiting for it to like show up, and then we were talking about like one-shot learning, a few-shot learning, which is like
Hmm.
just give it a few samples and it learns. And that's what OpenAI was like just a year and a half ago when we were like training them how to generate SQL from commands, or we were telling it how to have a combination, generate code from Liquid, which we do that today
Yeah.
also, right? We were doing that. But now you don't even have to train. As part of the prompt, you can give an example. Here are a couple of examples. You just need two or
Hmm.
three examples.
Hmm.
Yeah, we want to take credit because we trained it, but at the end of the day,
Sure.
everyone can use those kind of things, right? Few shot learning. So I think that's where the world is headed. And this whole OpenAI Sam Altman fiasco, whether it was
Mm.
because of AGI or whatever the real reason is. Hopefully, we'll find out when he writes his book. But
Because you know it's coming, yeah, for sure.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, again, Wall Street is saying one thing, the Silicon Valley
Hmm.
is saying another thing. But at the end of the day, uh, more AI is coming, more useful AI is coming. And I'm not talking about what MIT should teach us, like, using AI as an assistant and eventually a
Right.
peer and eventually like your manager and eventually like it runs the corporation and just gives you tasks or a
Yeah.
distributed corp. That we are far from that. But at the end of the day, any tool that's available. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the thing. No one's hiring chief of staff because this OpenAI, this tool is your chief of
Sure.
staff now,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Do you so I think back to kind of Google and early kind of search engines, and back in the day, I mean, we were dating ourselves earlier, right? Given our early influences of the internet or whatever. But back in the early days, you kind of had to know how to search for something like on Google to get accurate results. Whereas
yeah.
today, Google's pretty smart. It knows, kind of what you meant to say or what you meant to search for. And it, has contextual history and all that kind of fun stuff. And I feel like I is still kind of in this place where you kind of have to know how to prompt. Um, and I kind of feel like I need to educate my on prompt engineering a little bit, but I don't know that that's always going to be the case, right? Because at
You're
some
right.
point,
Prompt engineering is going to go
productized,
away.
and so yeah, so I mean, does that is that really a thing? I mean, you see all the posts about like, top, you know, top prompts for CS professionals and all this kind of stuff. Like, is that going to be a thing in
Yeah.
10 years or 5 years?
No, not really. I think that'll go away. What they're doing is like reusing the same. How to write an email, they're putting that inside the code. How
Yeah.
to create the initial workflow like diagram, everyone's putting in there. But those are like barely scratching the surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what and yeah, I mean, like, why can't you create the prompt right when, like in our case, like we have like a narration was generated, and then we can click on a button and say make it humorous for peers but keep it
Mm-hmm.
professional for the CFO, right? So we do it just by one button, but we have
Yeah.
made the prompt behind the scenes to do all those kind
Mm-hmm.
of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think prompt whole thing is gonna go away. It's gonna become more of a, hey, ask the user. But along with that, we have to be very careful because if you put the prompt in front of the end user, they can ask anything. It can ask you to expose, hey, what is the underlying platform? What security systems are you using?
Mm-hmm.
What,
Mm-hmm.
what you can even ask like, what was the question that one of my engineers asked? Like, hey, what security patches have not been applied and how can I use them to infiltrate? He asked something like this and he was shocked that he got a really good answer, right? So,
Yeah.
so we were shocked, right? Like he did it in a
Sure.
meeting, like we went for like lunch and all this stuff. He just pulled up his laptop and did that. So we have to be very careful around, and that's why the security companies, they come to us. They ask first question: do you have SOC 2? Yes, we have SOC 2 and SOC 3. Okay, then this want to have a conversation. We're
Then they
like
open up.
Okta and
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
companies that we're talking to. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very interesting. And you hear about, like AI being now used in a collegiate setting, you having to like cite your prompts and how you got there and those kinds of,
yeah,
it's very interesting to me. Because
yeah,
I think there are all kinds of implications from a plagiarism perspective and whatnot. So
yeah,
it'll be
but
interesting to
but
see where that goes.
yeah, but don't get me wrong. There are already prompts available that will say you can prompt and say only give me answers that you can cite, and then it'll put the
Ah,
citation also. So it's easy to do that. I mean,
yeah.
don't try to solve an AI problem outside the realm of AI. Just ask the same thing, like how we do. Hey, how confident are you with your answer? And if the
Yeah.
answer is between 0.22 and point whatever 0.36, then we say somewhat confident. Or
I think that's
you
very
know you can
important for people to hear because I think I've talked to a lot of people who just have a general distrust for it,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? because it's this little black box. You don't
Yeah,
know
and
behind it, and so being
what I
able to
notice is,
figure out what's behind it is important.
yeah. So what I meant, so there are three types of people. Like, the one in the middle could be the open-minded people. They're looking for answers, so ignore them. That's, and one is like who's a skeptic. So when a skeptic writes a word, he's looking for that answer that is wrong, so he can advertise that. Whereas the
Right.
other end, like people like me, they only look at the positives and like advertise that, right? But the right
Hmm.
person is like, who has an open mind and say knows the limitations of AI, but still is willing to give it a try to use it to her advantage, right? So that's
Hmm.
the key thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I love
Because
this. I
both
could.
extremes are bad. Like me, like everything positive about AI is also bad, and the other person who's like, "Hey, no human touch, no nothing. AI is going to take over our lives," and that's also bad, right?
Right.
So it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Balance. It's all about balance.
I could have just
It's
said that instead of giving a long story.
no, it's perfect. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think I could talk about this stuff all day. But the unfortunate thing about the fact that it is 8 till the hour is that we are running out of time, and that sucks. But I do have a couple of just kind of round out questions for
Yeah.
you. The first one is what are you paying attention to, listening to that informs kind of who you are? It could be business, could be not business.
I'll be honest. I think I'm spending a lot of time on TikTok these days, and somehow
You
it
and me
had
both.
figured out that I read a lot about entrepreneurship, and
Yeah.
I kind of look at like AI hallucination problems and AI. So those three things it talks a lot about, and it also talks to me about shoes
Yeah.
and sunglasses because it knows that I collect sunglasses and it knows that I collect shoes, right, or
Uh-huh.
boots and all
Yeah.
this stuff. So between
Yeah.
these five topics, I use like TikTok. But then I when I go for walks, I'm usually have like one AirPod and I'm listening to books. I tend to listen to the books that I've read before
Mm.
because I'm trying to look for more things
Yeah.
that I missed, or I've started to disagree with a lot of stuff that I re-listen to now. I
Hmm.
guess as I'm evolving, as my concept, so I kind of figure out like, okay, they're just saying the norm, right? They're
Yeah.
just they like, for example, their product is for CSMs, so there is no way they are interested in having a low ratio, or a high ratio of account to CSMs, right? Because they charge by the number of
Hmm.
CSMs, so that's why they're going to say this. So I've become
Yep.
skeptical. So instead of just learning from that, I'm saying, why are they doing that? So I've started to
Yeah.
like think like that. Which I think people should listen or read books that they have read before again after like a 3 or 6 month period. So
Yeah, I think that's really helped, the fact that you're reading it and then listening to it, because I feel like I mean, I know our brain very differently, if whether it's auditory input or visual input, right? So it's
yeah,
like
you're absolutely right.
you're probably picking up on stuff just because of that very thing.
Yeah, and what you were describing is, and this is one of the research that we did at when we started Cast. So, University of Washington, some biomedicine doctor, he said, like, if you just use one modal, which is like reading a blog post or listening to a podcast, you retain 10% of the information.
Hmm.
If you add one more, like visuals as well as reading, it goes to 65%. And I have the research
Yeah.
too. I've actually paid for it. But if you add a third one, it goes to 73%. You add a
Mm.
fourth one, 73.5. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But minimum two is kind of that is the reason our avatars have lip movement when they talk,
Oh,
right? So you're
wow.
listening to something, you
Mhm.
are watching, and you see the lip movement and all. This came directly from the professor, right? Like, but I'll be very transparent. Like 50% of our customers turn the avatar off, and
Yeah.
50% like want to label it, name it. Like I said, hi, I'm Amy, or hi, I'm Mark, depending on the gender. So they do
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
sorts
Yeah.
of
Huh.
things. But you're absolutely right. Sorry for the.
No, it's great.
I'll look up the research. Actually, it might be linked on our website also at the bottom,
Yeah.
but I'll look it up and
Yeah.
and email it to
Well, I
you.
mean, it's even in editing this, these podcast episodes. I do edit the video and the audio at this, and I notice that when I'm looking at it, and I've even had this feedback when people are listening on YouTube versus just on their podcast app, they pick up different things, because obviously so much of our communication as humans is visual.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I have CarPlay, and recently the podcast app in CarPlay enabled like the 1.5x, 1.7x speed, right? Like, so what I noticed, like
Uh-huh.
if I listen at 1.7x speed, I'm driving much faster. So I had to like go back to 1.25 and 1.5 because, I'm into sports cars a little bit, but I tend to drive a lot faster when I'm listening to something really fast, right? So it's like, that was the reason why I switched it back to 1.5 or, versus like 2x.
That's really funny. Apple's probably going to have to update their terms and conditions with that.
Just for me, just because of this guy who tends to
That's
drive
right.
faster when he's listening to faster podcasts.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, look, I've enjoyed this conversation tremendously. I'm sure people can find you on LinkedIn. Are there other resources or places people to?
Yeah. LinkedIn.com/in/Dickey, Dickey. And the best way to reach me is like my email. So Dickey at Cast.app. I think those are the two best ways to reach me.
Amazing. Well, again, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Digital Customer Success Podcast. If you like what we're doing, consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. It really helps us to grow and to provide value to a broader audience. You can view the Digital Customer Success definition word map and get more details about the show at digitalcustomersuccess.com. My name is Alex Turkovich. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next time.